Brian, we're going to kick this check-in off with my review of the first 6 weeks of recovery. So what we're looking at here is me posing 1 week ago, 6 weeks post-Worlds, and 7 weeks post-Worlds as I record this on the 7th of January on Sunday. And the game plan that we set forth was to be in the 83-84 range, 5-ish, 6% up from stage weight by the end of the year. And that's exactly what I did. As you can see, I was mid 79s week of Worlds, and I was mid 84s last week, 6 weeks post show. And this is the leanest I've ever been 6 weeks post show. And the good news is I don't think I compromised recovery by being a little more conservative. In 2019, I was 90 kilos at this point versus 84, and feeling pretty similar in terms of my recollection at that point. So I think time is a big component of it. Being in a surplus is a big component of it, but I probably don't need to push it that far. I'm feeling even better than I did last week this week, and my body weight is up more, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I would say that body fat has not gone up that much more. I look pretty similar to this video now as I did last week. And I'm really proud of this recovery. And I think it's still in progress. I'm still a little too food focused, but sleep's improving, hunger is improving, anxiety, mood, they're getting there, and we'll talk about why that is. But the main thing I want to say is I really feel like I've actually put on some muscle. In my quads, I feel like they're the biggest they've ever been right now, which is pretty wild. And also my arms. Some of this could be swelling. Some of it could just be in my head or forgetting what it was like to be big. But as we get into my actual check-in after this, let me just say, I think we're already making gains. So yeah, with the recovery out of the way, let's talk about the last full 7 weeks as kind of like a check-in with an emphasis on the program. So first off, I love the program. The 5-day split, the exercise order, the emphasis on different muscle groups, the inclusion of length and bias and focusing on that, and just really trying to prioritize and customize it to me, it's been perfect. The volume is equal to or higher than the highest I've had it for most muscle groups, and I'm recovering quite well. I eased into it. There are actually sometimes I've done even higher volumes, like through weightlifting and powerlifting simultaneously for my lower body. But this is similar, and it's up there, and I'm recovering far better, especially in my lower body, with 15-ish sets for my quads and hams, and I think 18 for glutes, depending upon how you count it. And I think the main reason is that it's not consisting of squats and deadlifts. Like I have RDLs, I have hack squats, but I'm also doing leg extension, leg curl, Bulgarian split squats. So a lot of the variations we're doing are just much less systemically stressful, which enables me to get to where we're at. But they're also really, really locally stressful. Like I spend most of the week, except for the day that I train legs, the 2 days I train legs, having some DOMs, not crippling or not really bad, which is a first for a long time for me. And I even get a fair bit of DOMs in my upper body, but not that much. And it always is recovering on time. So I feel like the balance between stress, stimulus, and recovery is really perfect right now. And I think the proof is in the pudding in that my numbers are going up really fast. And I've had prep recoveries where my strength didn't rebound that much. And a lot of that had to do with I didn't lose very much. And this prep, I didn't lose very much strength. And I'm seeing it now skyrocket. So I feel like this is not just a product of recovery. I feel like it's a product of an excellent program and setting it up in such a way that is very stimulative. The big thing I'd like to say is I think I'm bigger. So as you'll see what's on the screen now, my body weight has kept going up, and I was in the 85s this entire week, and I messaged you, I DM'd you earlier, Brian, and it has given me a bit of a mind F, to be perfectly honest, because our game plan is to get to 88, and to do that by like a year from now, or 11 months from now, I think at this point. And that has obviously I'm way over pace for that, considering I've been gaining like a kilo from last week to this week, and it's despite the fact that I was kicking things off with a recovery diet that was maybe a little too conservative, and then I went up to the 3 to 4K mark, and I was gaining, and then I dropped it down to the 27 to 28 mark, and now I've dropped it down to 2,500 to 2,600 calories. And I'm still gaining at that same pace, which just doesn't make sense. And I haven't had any binges. I've been on point with my nutrition like 100%, and I'm pretty damn good at estimating calories, even though I'm not rigidly tracking or weighing everything at this point. So to see my body weight do this has been a little bit of a head scratcher, and I think it's a combination of a few things. So one, fun science hat lesson time. There are roughly 3,500 calories in a pound of fat, and there's roughly 9,000 calories in a kilo or something like that, or I think 8,000. The energy content of lean tissue is far less because it is mostly water, and there's only 4 calories per gram of protein. So depending upon what I'm putting on, I think the scale weight is at least partially explained by some increases in lean tissue. Visually, I look bigger, and I look very good at this body composition. My performance is up, and my body weight is going up in a way that is disproportionate to my energy intake. Now, I'm absolutely not saying that I put on a kilo of lean mass from last week to this week. I think there's also soreness and edema and swelling that is going on. I think there's a fair amount of just me having more inflammation than I have previously. Like I said, I have DOMS more consistently that I think is contributing to that, and changes in just how much food I carry in my GI tract on a regular basis. And then I think increases in glycogen, which is even less energetically costly to store because you're not building lean tissue. So to go back to putting on my science hat, even if it only takes, let's say, 100 calorie surplus in a week to put on like a pound of lean tissue, which is kind of cool when you think about it, the energetic process of creating that lean tissue you'd typically anticipate needing an even higher calorie intake. And if that was the case, where I was managing to put on lean tissue exclusively, and this was a full kilo of lean tissue, I'd actually be getting leaner because the energy balance just doesn't make sense, So one thing I know is it's not body fat that I've gained, because for me to be putting on a kilo of body fat in a week, and this is more of an educational point than an actual check-in or a worry of mine, by the way, it would mean my maintenance energy intake was like 1,400, which is just physically impossible for an 85 kilo 6-foot male who is getting an average of 8,000 steps per day and training hard 5 days a week, for around 6 hours plus per week. That's just not going to happen, even if you're the most extreme outlier in terms of low energy expenditure. So we know it's not body fat, physically impossible. And it's very unlikely to be exclusively just lean tissue because of the energy cost of building that lean tissue. But if we're talking about a combination of body fat, lean tissue, glycogen, stomach contents, and water, that's really the only way it makes sense. And that's kind of what I've been having to tell myself. I've had to put on my own coach's hat, because it's not a comfortable thing to go, all right, in a year we'll get to 88, and then to see an average weight gain of under a kilo 3 weeks in a row, despite my calories being in the 2,000 range, the 2,800s, and then coming down to 2,500. And one thing I said to you, and I want to see if you still agree, is like, hey, if I'm still gaining weight at too fast of a pace at 2,500 calories, that's probably an indication of incomplete recovery anyway. A big part of recovery is, the metabolic component and getting everything firing on all cylinders. And while I do feel better, I'm also open to the idea that maybe I just forgot what normal feels like, and if I'm still gaining weight at 2,500, it probably means that I'm just trying to stay too lean. And not just gain weight, but gain body fat. But the thing is I really don't think I've gained that much body fat in the last couple of weeks. So anyway, that was kind of touch point one that I wanted to check in with you about and just get your feedback on. Like I said, my body comp from that video that I took last week is basically the same as it is now. And the numbers just don't quite add up for what I'm eating, what I look like, and what I'm weighing, unless, we kind of take into account all those factors. And, if I hadn't been stepping on the scale at all, I would be ecstatic with this recovery. I think it really is just the scale weight number getting in my head a little bit because we're outpacing the pace. But my intuition right now is that I'm probably going to start leveling off in the 85s at this calorie intake, and that 2,500 is probably like a very, very slight surplus or right around maintenance for me. We kind of estimated that my maintenance was around 2,100 calories towards the end of prep. And certainly, I'm not weighing in at 79 in the morning, and I've recovered a good bit, and I know my energy expenditure is higher, like my core temperature is higher, my heart rate's rebounded a few beats. So like my heart rate's in the 40s, not the 30s now. So I know my energy expenditure has gone up, I'm, obviously I'm 5-6% body weight higher. So I think a decent estimation is that on the low end, my maintenance energy intake it's probably I'd say no lower than like 2,300. So at most, I'm in a 200 calorie surplus on average right now at this current intake, maybe 300 calories. So yeah, and that seems about right for our goal. And yeah, so I'm thinking 2,500 it doesn't make sense to go lower than that, just from like a recovery, metabolic health kind of numbers perspective, and my historical knowledge of my recent and like longer ago maintenance energy intake. So I think nutritionally I'm on point, even though the weight gain is happening faster than it's supposed to. I think I've actually put on muscle, which is awesome. And like every indicator I would use as a coach or an athlete to tell if I'm putting on muscle is signifying that it is. The only confounding variable is that it's, the recovery phase. So it's a little messy, but overall, I think while that's stressful, I think it's a positive thing. So yeah, that's the main check-in that I wanted to give, covering the recovery, covering the bit of a mind F of my body weight and where my analytical mind and anxiety has gone, but that ultimately I'm managing it pretty well. I do think I've got a little more recovery to go, still a little too food focused, but sleep is on point, and most other things I think are firing on nearly all cylinders, if not all cylinders. And yeah, I'm just curious as to where we see the program going from here. And also, what do you think in terms of when I should be deloading? Do you want to do it reactively? And, when and at what point do we make a modification to the program? I guess probably when I stop progressing. But let's just say I'm super motivated and I'm making a ton of progress. I accidentally, just from not looking at my sheet, I did an extra set on rear delt rows yesterday when I did my last day, because I do 4 sets of shoulder press, and I'm supposed to do 3 sets of rows, and I did 4 because I was doing antagonist paired sets. So can I handle the volume? Can I handle the intensity, the fact that I'm going to failure on most sets? And can I handle the frequency and the overall output and the recovery demands? Yes, I can. And it's definitely paying off. So not that I think we should do more just because I was able to recover, but I think right now we've got a really good dose, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So anyway, thank you again, Brian, for all your guidance. Let me know what you want to do from here, your thoughts on the body weight change, how I'm looking, the progress in the gym, and just where you see the next phase is and how we want to go. Oh, and the last thing, it officially got announced by the time this video is coming out. There's no more restrictions on how often WNBF pros need to compete. So I don't have to compete in 2025. Now, that's a bit of a relief because that means there's no pressure to stay like super lean, because I need to, make the most of my time, but I still want to make the most of my time. So my thoughts are that we kind of progress as planned, gain until December, do a mini cut. I think the body weight's less critically important now, to where it doesn't need to be 88, or could we get to 90 or 91? I don't think that matters quite as much if we don't have to compete in 2025. But the mini cut could still tell us something nice, so long as so long as it gets me to a lean enough point where we can assess my physique. So if I get up to 88, 89 by December of 2024, and then we mini cut into the mid 85s, we can assess my physique now, compare it to where I was at this point, and go, have I made substantial progress? And then if I have, we can compete in 2025. But if not, I'm very open to kicking the can down the road, punting, and seeing if we can accumulate another off season to make some good progress and make 2026 the year. So I just like the flexibility. I think it gives me more of an opportunity at this stage in the game to ensure that I've made progress. But let's just say I would not be surprised if by 2025 I have made a substantial amount of progress, because things are going so well at this point and motivation has not waned at all. I look forward to the gym every day so much. So anyway, just want to get your thoughts on all that. Apologies for the ramble, and thanks again for the coaching.
Hey, what's up, man? So just watched your check-in video, and I know we've chatted a bit about your training since you started the program, but first formal check-in of the off season, very positive. Really couldn't hope for anything better, to be honest. The acute goal was to expedite recovery, and we have accomplished that. And even though maybe we're not 100%, we are in a place that I'm very happy with 4 to 6 weeks post show. And all of that while also having built and afforded ourselves a longer runway for gaining than maybe you did in 2019. So, if we're at similar recovery as we were then, but we're 5.5 kilos lighter, like that's a huge win. And, I'm looking forward to, just a nice productive gaining phase with not, without having the thought come into our minds prematurely to mini cut. I know from the athlete's perspective, sometimes that's easy to do post show, in that acute gaining phase, if people are a little bit ahead of a projected schedule. But on that note too, you met the timeline we wanted for the end of the year, which is great. But with regards to timelines, I think it's worth mentioning, not only to you, but anybody watching is, body weight milestones and things like that, especially coming out of a show, those are just proxies for planning, so they're forecasting improvements in the aspects that we actually care about. And so, if you would have come to me and said, this check-in that you still felt smoked from the season, irritable, poor sleep, hunger through the roof, we probably would have made the move, like, let's continue to gain a little bit more assertively until those things are in a better place. So, and I also mentioned that because I know one of the aspects that was mentally a little bit, I think especially from your shoes, almost like annoying that it's hard to explain what maybe you're seeing, but everything you said, makes perfect sense. And, visually, I think you do look bigger, beyond what would just be, cell swelling, inflammation, and glycogen. So it's size beyond glycogen. And, at this stage, I wish I could say that was part of my master plan, this slingshot rebound into hypertrophy. But, it's, as we know, we tend to grow when we are fully recovered post-show. That's when muscle growth's most efficient. So the fact we see anything visually is like, that's a huge bonus. So we will take that. And, performance is going up. I think that's also supportive of the fact that, there probably has been a little bit of muscle mass that's come with that. So I do think at this stage, given where we're at, it wouldn't hurt to pull back to 2,500, at least for the next couple of weeks, see how you respond. It wouldn't surprise me if we need to increase it again. Sometimes there can just be those spikes and then just kind of level off, and then a spike and then level off. And I wish I knew the answer in, ways to predict when that would happen, but it's not the first time I've seen that, where, a given intake is causing like a gain beyond a little bit of what you would expect, assuming compliance is there. And, but I think there has been some muscle gain there, and, we will take that all day. So, but pulling back 2,500 the next couple of weeks. I know you had mentioned you and Barb are going to France on the 22nd, I think you said. So if nothing else, the 2,500, maybe it serves as a little bit of a buffer leading into that, in case, so you can indulge a bit while you're out there. But it wouldn't surprise me if we find we need to bump that up. And if you are, like you said, continuing to gain pretty assertively, it does seem like you've started to level off this week. But if we notice, okay, compliance is there, and I'm eating 2,500 calories and I'm still, gaining pretty quickly, I agree. I think that's probably indicative of incomplete recovery. But I don't suspect that's the case given everything else that you've mentioned. So let's see how it trends. But even then, like I said, the body weight is just, it's a proxy for the other stuff. So the other stuff is in a great spot. So let's keep that in mind. And, all of that also to say, the WNBF news, I think, is huge. It's a huge step forward for the sport. I think, the quality of athletes competing, will probably improve, giving longer off seasons and things like that. So, that's awesome. And I also think it was probably convenient timing. because it puts less pressure on the timeline. And again, the timeline, just to reiterate again, not just for you, but for anybody watching, it's like they're just numbers. They're just estimates. And like if you were 88 kilos at this point and you sent me that video and you were in that condition, I would still relatively lean. I'd be thrilled, even though the weight was a little bit more assertive. So the fact that it does give you like, okay, I could do 2026 if I wanted. It takes some stress away, I think, with the short turnaround and not having to worry about, you can really, if nothing else, like fully invest like in a productive off season mentally, because okay, if I need to take that other year, it's going to be there. So, I think that's great news. So that's pretty much it. We will plan to deload here in a couple weeks, the week you're in France, and depending on if you want to train, just let me know what you have available. But, even if you took a week off, I don't think that would be the end of the world by any means. So, we'll plan to run with this. If you feel like we need a deload before then, let me know. But that's it, dude. Just keep up the good work. Looking good, looking great. And I think, even if you decide to compete in 2025, I think there's going to be visual improvements to show for it. So that's a bridge we can cross later, but enjoy the rest of your week and I'll talk to you soon. All right, man.
That's going to be it for this episode of Believe 2024, folks. You'll see just me in the next episode. Brian will be in every other episode when I check in with him. And we're going to cover in the next episode how I'm deloading and eating while in France. I'll also discuss the progression model we're using in my training, and also something else that came up shortly after my check-in and how I'm managing that and how I advise managing that in your training.